Hello, Tom Lavecchia here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. I am really excited about this next guest today, Stephen Grasse, author of Brand Mysticism. And I got to be honest with you, you're not going to know who he is, okay? You're not going to know who he is. And I got a feeling that's kind of by design, but you will know the brands that he represented. So I kind of like his book. He's like, even a bonehead can do it. I'm kind of a bonehead, so it got kind of resonated with me. But just some of them are Hendricks gin, which is my favorite gin. I almost thought it was like a joke when I found out he represented Hendricks. I was like, he's probably the reason why I'm drinking it. Sailor Jerry rum, Narragansett beer, and many, many more. Stephen Grasse, welcome to the New Theory podcast. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So, okay, like I said, I'm very excited. I'm a big Hendricks drinker.
It's pronounced Narragansett, by the way.
Narragansett.
Narragansett. It's a New England, Rhode Island beer.
Well, you revived that. That was more of a revival, correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to jump right in. Now, for the, we're not all so inclined. I have a small marketing agency. I know a little bit about branding to be dangerous. What is a brand? What is branding? Let's start off with that, Stephen.
What is a brand and what is branding?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if there's no brand, it's just a commodity, right? So a brand is a way that a commodity identifies itself and distinguishes itself amongst other commodities. So, I mean, that's, I guess, the rudimentary definition of what a brand is.
Love it. Now, why is it important? Because, okay, I differentiate myself versus the pack, and that's great. That just kind of gets into the dance. You kind of took it to a whole nother level with the brands that you marketed. So, how do you differentiate yourself, which is
well,
great.
Okay. I just heard this statistic the other day. There are now 6,000 different gins in the world.
Damn.
And there are 500 new ones coming on board every year in America alone. Okay. So, the reason a strong brand is important and a story and all the things that go along with what I do is otherwise you're one of 6,000 and you have no way to stand out. So it's about not only about standing out, but it's about giving value and differentiating. It's the same with you as a person. Like how do you stand out amongst the crowd? Well, you distinguish yourself in many ways by the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you act, and the contents of your character. With a brand, it would be the contents of your package.
Now, I personally, I take my Hendricks on the rocks, muddled cucumber with a touch of simple syrup, right? And if I generally don't drink gin and tonic, I don't.
Yeah.
But if I were to, I generally don't ask for Hendricks just because I don't drink it that often. But if I drink a gin, I ask for Hendricks. So what was I want to go through like step by step because I think Hendricks for me is the most probably I have the most attachment to because I'm a big drinker, right? And how did you start off? Like, what was your positioning? What were some of the challenges? What were some of your failures? And how did you kind of get Hendricks to where it is today?
I think the biggest challenge I had with Hendricks was I had never created a gin before, never created an alcoholic spirit before. I didn't really know anything about how gin was made, or I didn't really know much about the industry. So, but I think that naivete actually helped with the conceptualization for this product, in the sense that like I didn't know what a London Dry was. I didn't know what gin was supposed to be. And I feel like that lack of knowledge helped because I created something that I thought sounded good, and it ended up being, setting a new benchmark. And I think you can argue that Hendricks gin is kicked off the entire craft gin business, which, before Hendricks, there were literally like 3 or 4 brands.
Yeah.
After Hendricks, there's 6,000.
Yeah.
So we are the Ramones of, launched 1,000. The Ramones, the story is the Ramones launched 1,000 garage bands. We launched 10,000 gin brands.
Yeah. All right. So then, okay. So I guess I'm gonna be selfish for a second. So one of the struggles I have as a marketer, digital marketer specifically, is I get more hired. I get hired more for transactional type stuff. Hey, I have a plastic surgery practice. I got a dental office. I have a brand I'm looking to sell more of. And for probably about 5, 6 years into it, I really kind of just focus on selling, 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 selling. And then probably the last few years, I've been focusing more on brand building, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And although you understand it, and I think I understand the value of it, sometimes customers don't. Like it's hard to tell a local place that, hey, listen, you're gonna give me 5,000 a month for 9 months. You're gonna make anything, but eventually it will hockey stick as we position and and roll out the brand. How do you balance for somebody who has less resources where you want to build the brand, but you still got a mortgage to pay? What are some of your kind of, I know it's a kind of an esoteric question, but how do you kind of balance brand building while also, creating sales and revenue?
Well, I would actually argue that until you have a brand, you're going to keep struggling.
Yeah, good point.
So I think money is not the obstacle with branding. The
Good point.
obstacle is having a good idea and having a identifiable, ownable idea, and then repeating it. All that money does is amplify a good idea. Money can't take the place of a bad idea.
Good point. And, let's just say you are rolling out your brand. Is it something that you should say to yourself, whether it be a spirit, drink the spirit, like be candid, oh, this isn't a premium, but it's more of a mixture. Like how do you first come to the realization on where you should position your brand? And then from there, how do you go about getting the message out early on?
How do you decide how to position your brand? Well, there's many factors.
Yeah.
Um, with an alcoholic spirit, there's a wide range of things that go into that. So, for instance, you sort of look at the segment of the market you wish to, where you think there's opportunity. So, I tend to work in this super premium, luxury aspect of the market, because that's where the margin is. But if you're going to be working in the bottom end of the market, that works too. But you just have to, make your idea fit the price point that you're working within. So, it all depends on you have to have your brand fit the market or the niche that you're trying to fit.
The right market fit.
Yeah.
Why do good products? Why do good products that are solid products in the categories often fail? In your opinion?
Because they didn't hire me.
There you go.
I think a lot of I think a lot of people underestimate how long it takes to make something stick in the market, and they run out of funds. So again, what you want to do is create an idea, an identity that's as sticky as possible, so that it gets momentum in the market. Because if you don't do that, you're going to have to throw a lot of money at it for anyone to ever see it. Whereas if, like, I had a brand come out last summer called Crab Trapper, and it was a whiskey made with an invasive green crab species. And this whiskey captured the imagination of the press. We ended up getting $32 million worth of publicity on it. We were on the Colbert Show. We were on all the morning shows. We were on in every magazine you can think of, because the idea was so compelling. It had a good name, Crab Trapper. So we didn't spend a dime on marketing or advertising for that brand. It was just the idea had just such momentum. And that's what you want to, that's the dream, is you create an idea that's so sticky that it just moves under its own velocity. I lost you. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sorry. Spirits are kind of a weird game where there's pull through marketing, which is
Yeah.
what you guys did, whether it be PR, advertising, digital, where somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I want this spirit."
Yeah.
But in the spirit game, it's not as easy to get a place. You got, especially in New Jersey, distribution. You know how it is. Hey, I want to get the stock. You got to go through this distributor. The store owners, nobody's asking for it. So how do you balance what you did was a pull through, getting awareness, right? Versus how did you able to get this stuff stocked initially? Because that's I think as hard in the spirit game.
It's especially hard in New Jersey.
Yeah, I know.
But what you have to do is create an idea. I mean, you have to if you do it right, you'll get distribution because everybody wants it.
Yeah.
Because you have people asking for it. If you do it wrong, not necessarily wrong, but if you take a less polarizing approach, you can get there, but it either takes time or money or both.
Yeah.
So it's a question of like the most assured route is to buy my book, read it, underline with a highlighter all the stuff I tell you to do, and you will circumvent many years of toil and tears because you'll create something that the market wants. Okay? Yeah.
So I got the little one here.
Yeah.
So okay. So in terms of strategy, and again, this is kind of a generic question. Forgive me. I got the little one. We go live to tape. We do it all here in New Theory.
Yeah.
In terms of spirits, right? Because I've filtered everything you're saying, and I'm calling me Mr. Practical. But do you like to go to like an inch wide, mile deep theory where like, hey, you know what? Let's just do corner of Seattle. Let's just supermarket there. Let's get it stocked. Let's get it used. Get some use cases. See where it fits, and then expand. Right? That's inch wide, mile deep. Or you more? No. Let's just do a little bit throughout the country, and just see what kind of sticks, and then follow where it is. What strategy have you employed in the past, and what have historically worked for you on rolling out a national brand?
If it's my money, I take a very conservative approach.
Yeah.
If it's one of my brands, like our distillery in New Hampshire, our simple strategy is to own the state of New Hampshire.
I like it.
Okay. So New Hampshire is strangely the third largest single buyer of spirits in the world. Okay. After Pennsylvania and Canada.
Do they distribute other states, or is consumed in the state?
It's a state monopoly. So they so it's a state monopoly like Pennsylvania is, and they they own all the stores, so it's a state monopoly, and they have a local mandate to buy products that are made locally. So
interesting.
In New Hampshire, we are the biggest supplier of craft spirits in the state.
Oh, that's amazing.
And we are available also in our store in Pennsylvania. And then we are available nationwide through several websites. But our main focus is New Hampshire. So I think a lot of craft distillers make the mistake of listing in all these different states. And when you list, the distributor is going to tell you they're going to do all this stuff for you, but they don't.
Yeah.
And they can't. And so it's the same, like, with anything. Like your record label tells a band they're going to do all this stuff for you, but they don't. So, or your publisher, whatever. So you have to take it under your own. So we always say, when in, be heard. So don't go where you don't have support. You need to have feet on the street. You need to have do tastings. You need to just make sure that where you are, your people can find you. But that being said, when we create brands like the Crab Trapper or other products that we create that are purposely meant to go viral, we get press globally and make it purposely hard to find the products so that we generate demand, and it casts a halo on the entire company, and we sell more products.
Like Blanton's to me is a little hard to get.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of that model. And I
Absolutely.
also can find it hard to get Buffalo Trace, but I also think that's the Joe Rogan effect, just because it just sells through. But I think they limit the blends on purpose, in my opinion.
They probably do. And I feel like, we learned that strategy. Again, it's in the book. Our company, before we were in the spirits business, we were in the sneaker business, and we did Puma, and we
Yeah.
made Puma grow globally. We took them from a $50 million dying brand to the point where they sold it for $7 billion to Kering, which is Gucci. And based on this whole idea of limited product drops and limited editions, and then we've taken that and applied it to our own business with distilling.
Mm. Yeah, because it's the same principle. I call it the Ferrari model. They make one less car than they need.
Yeah. Yes. There you go. There you go.
Everybody goes nuts over it.
Yeah.
All right, so we kind of get a little bit of the concept there. Like I said, you guys gonna have to read the book. This is one of those, like, you can listen to the podcast and gonna learn. But I'm 3/4 through, and I'm mystified myself because I learned a lot so far. In the book, obviously, you talk about, back in the day, it was very scrappy, fax machines and that kind of stuff. And I know kind of it's funny because you're probably scratching your head. You're like, if I had the resources that everybody has now back then, you'd be on the Forbes list 10 times over. But, but maybe that's why you were strong, because you had limited kind of resources, right?
Yeah. And I also feel like, I mean, I consider myself an artist more than I consider myself a businessman. So what we create is conceptual performance art that you can buy and drink.
Yeah.
And it's a very different business model than trying to be a publicly owned or venture capital or private equity. We don't really do that. Instead, it's really about creating really interesting things. And it seems the more crazy we get, the more money we make. So it's a nice place to be, because it's a very lucrative business, but it's a very artistically satisfying business.
Well, that's why in the book you're like, make sure you follow everything in this book. And by the way, everything in this book is total BS, which I love. And I kind of get that dichotomy. But I want to get your feel for the mediums. Okay, I get the idea. You're, artistic, and you come up with great concepts, and you roll out for the ability for them to be executed.
Yeah.
What are the mediums that you're kind of betting big on? Are you like a TikTok guy? Are you, being serious? Like, what mediums do you like for people to roll out some of these concepts? Because the cool thing about it is, if you could come up with a local concept for your brand or business, the mediums are widely available. So I'd like to get a feel for what mediums that you'd like for messaging.
I don't really think about mediums. I think I kind of look at it like the message is the message, and whatever the mediums of the day are, of course you use them to get the word out.
Yeah.
But that'll keep changing. Like, what's relevant today won't be relevant tomorrow.
Yeah.
Certainly was easier before social media, I think. But also was barred entry for a lot of smaller brands. So I think social media is important. I have like a whole staff that does social stuff for us. So, but I think you can communicate directly with people, but there's no centralized way of, like, in some ways it's harder to get attention now because it's, magazines don't exist anymore, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a different world.
Good point. So, okay, so you're agnostic on the medium, so the messaging becomes important.
Yeah.
So what about for yourself? Now, you are obviously top of your game. Warren Buffett also talks about businesses he likes to get into. He creates a moat around the business. And I kind of have a feeling that part of your strategy for your brands is to create a moat around the brands, which is very difficult to do. What are some recommendations to build a moat around your brand if possible?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that. What is a moat around the brand?
A castle has a moat around it,
Sure.
and the way to get entrance is through the drawbridge. So obviously the higher barrier to entry, or just hard to compete with, and that's kind of like one of Warren Buffett's founding prophecies, if you will, or business, I guess, lessons.
Well,
so,
I think what we do to fortify ourselves is, and again, this is what the entire gist of the book is our ideas are not based on trends or based on what other people are doing. They're based on really like weird personal concepts.
Quirkiness.
And you can't, once you have a brand that's working, like a brand like Hendricks,
Yeah.
It's hard to rip it off or replicate it because it was created in such a unique fashion in itself.
Yeah.
So you can't just mimic it because it's totally on its own.
Good
And
point.
I feel like that's what you need to do to fortify yourself, is to create original ideas that no one else is, don't follow trends, but just be on an island by yourself.
Kind of create the trend. Now, some of the brands that you worked with, again, you were very innovative on your approach, very innovative on your execution, and you talk a little bit about like Puma, for example. What about if somebody has more of a mature brand or mature business they're looking to turn around pretty quickly? They read the book. What are some of the lessons that they can learn on how to
Well,
make?
there's always, okay, so we've taken many brands that are that have heritage and that are old. So it's a big chapter in the book on, before we were in spirits, we were also in cigarettes, tobacco.
Yeah.
Or we currently work with Guinness,
Yeah.
which is 268 years old. And
Yeah.
a lot of it's about, like, we go through and learn the brand's history and learn what made it unique in the first place and try to restore a lot of those things. Like when we worked with Miller High Life, it was a restoration project as opposed to what was wrong with Miller High Life is they didn't realize that it was such a the brand didn't have any self-esteem, and
You made it cool again, which I like. I thought that
we
was
made it cool again by not trying to be cool.
Yeah. You didn't change the likeness. You didn't change
We
the
actually
label. You didn't change the flavor.
we did we redid all the packaging, and
I didn't even notice.
we took things away and made it very simple,
Yeah.
as opposed to it being like we weren't trying to appeal to Gen Z or whatever. We just made it it was true to itself.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you got to bring up a good point. I in the past gotten kind of stuck on it. I'm a little less about it. Oh, the Gen Z consumes content differently, and Gen Xers, blah blah blah, and kind of like maybe over segmenting, in my opinion. What are some of the traps people should look out for that are common that you see that people looking to grow their brand or business, at a smaller level? But what are some of the traps that you see people fall into every day?
I don't know, just not understanding their own product, or being overcomplicated, or traps. I think people underestimate what it takes to break through, and I think people don't have the patience that when you do break through, don't keep changing, just keep pounding the message home.
Yeah.
Brands that we all know and love, they're great and they're 100 years old because there's a core element to it that they just keep persisting with, like Coca-Cola. So many brands, like that they understand who they are and their essence, and then they just keep pounding it home. So
Yeah, I often heard stay consistent in your messaging and be dynamic in your approach. There might be different ways to get the message across, but the message has to stay the same. You've been through a lot. Like you've done a lot. What has to happen to excite you these days? You know what I mean? Like, and it's not. I can tell it's not just about money. It is not just a cool idea. It's not a trend. What's got to really excite you and get you out of bed these days? Because you're at a different operating at a high level. I wanted to ask you that.
I get excited by any challenge that seems impossible.
Yeah.
Or we get a lot of requests to create brands from scratch, and I get excited by intelligent clients that let us do our job.
Yeah.
And I get excited by my own projects because we get to tinker and try things, and then we can take what we've learned to our corporate clients and say firsthand that we know this works because we've done it.
Yeah.
I get excited too by, like, we have 2 retail stores, and I enjoy the day-to-day or week-to-week challenge of putting things out and seeing if it actually worked, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, because it's not so much like with a lot of the big corporate clients, it's theoretical to a degree.
Correct.
Whereas with the smaller stuff that we do for ourselves, it's
That's
really
cool.
fun to see it actually, like when the Crab Trapper blew up and it just kept going.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a wild ride, and it's so fun for my staff to experience that excitement.
Now, did you work with Finlandia?
No, I've never worked with Finlandia.
Ah, okay. I was just wondering. I'll tell you why afterwards. All right. So the other thing I wanted to get a feel for, we'll be wrapping up soon, but the other thing I want to get a feel for is and again,
Lost you.
sorry, this is a stupid mic. What I'm gathering, what I'm unpacking today and extracting is money is not necessarily in the way of succeeding. Don't get me wrong, money
No.
could buy media, money could get you out the quicker. I'm not diminishing that. But it's the ideas, right? How do you or how did you manage? Now I could tell you balls, you'll tell people what's what. I'm getting there, like to say I'm getting there. But sometimes we'll also have an idea, um, and we'll be at conflict with the client, and then sometimes we'll acquiesce because they're cutting the check. It's like, you know what? We're letting you know this is gonna fail. It's your money, and like it's gonna fail. Like, you know what I mean? Like if it fails, don't blame us. But how do you manage like kind of active or dynamic disagreements with direction of ideas and execution with well-paying clients? I'm kind of interested in that.
I think at this point, you're not going to hire me if you don't.
Trust you.
Our work is so well known that you hire us for a reason, and that
Yeah.
we rarely, like, we don't take on a project if we don't have that mind meld going.
Okay.
And if we do, it's a really great collaborative process. And we also hire very like-minded people to work with us. So we give them a specific test when they come on. And we can
Oh,
kind of
nice.
tell what books they've read and what film directors they like. And I can
Kind of like a Wonderlick, but for creatives.
yeah. And if you like certain artists, if you mention them, I'll never hire you.
Interesting.
Yeah. Or if you're from New Jersey, I probably won't hire you.
Oh no, we're a
I'm just kidding.
we're
Yes.
we're in a conjurable lot.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, I don't recommend a lot of books. I don't read a lot of books. I mean, this is my to-do list here. And I made sure I put this at the front of the class. Just the way it was presented. Your team sent over this beautiful box. It was just everything about it. And even the title, Cultivate Creativity, Intoxicate the audience, which I love. My father, rest in peace, said, if you want to get the truth out of somebody, get them drunk. Not saying you're going to get everybody drunk, but where you're intoxicating them with your ideas. So I'm going to put a link below for brand.
Yeah, please do.
You can find it on Amazon. But if those people that want to find Steven, find you maybe on social media or your company, how can they find you?
My company's called Quaker City Mercantile,
Okay.
and you can look us up.
Beautiful. I'll put a link for that.
Yeah.
Quaker City Mercantile.
Yeah.
I mean, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally, Steven?
Souderton, Pennsylvania, which is a Mennonite farming community. At least it used to be. I think it's all strip malls now. But about 30 miles north of Philadelphia.
Now, how does such a nice young, hometown boy kind of become a captain of marketing?
Read the book. Find out.
There we go. Perfect.
Perfect segue. There you go.
Love it. Thank you,
All right.
Stephen, for
Thank
being on
you.
the New Theory podcast. For those on audio and iTunes, put a link below as well as YouTube. Stephen, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Bye.
Be well. Ciao.